It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. In fact, it just came in from out there. Didn't even have to put on my gloves. Still wore my scarf. But it's a great day, and we are shooting for a high of about 29 degrees. So let's take it. I'm sure plenty of folks are putting the blades on their tractors, using them across the driveway, maybe just taking a shovel out there and getting things cleaned off because why wouldn't you? Let's get this whole neighborhood tidied up before anything else should occur in our next blast of whatever it might be. In fact, to that respect, we are going to hit an overnight low tonight of about 17. I think that's going to be fairly nice out. And that's going to be followed by highs tomorrow of about 38. Now, wind along with it. And I'm hoping the wind is from the north. It can shove me right south as I head towards Sioux Falls tomorrow after the show. I will be, in fact, heading down to the Sioux Falls Agribusiness Association's event. I am their keynote speaker over lunch on Wednesday. Wednesday should hit a high up here of about 28, so we're right getting close to that freezing mark. And currently, we know that we are tracking another potentially impactful snow and wind event late Wednesday. That tells me not to loiter in Sioux Falls, but get myself on track because that can roll over into Tuesday. So, but before that, we have gotten out of our bitter cold for the last couple of days, and we're building back into those 30s and even 40s to our south. So with that warm weather coming in by late today into tomorrow, looks excellent, and it's short-lived because that next weather system could easily be coming in, like again, Wednesday night, Thursday, a bit of an Arctic blast of air joining it as well. All of our weather updates here in this hour are brought to you by the Progressive Ag Group Risk Management Specialists. We're happy to have them. Thanks for joining me at the Coral Laundromat Studio. When it gets a little warm and slushy like this, time to take all those muddy rugs and heavy-duty items over to the Coral Laundromat. Coral Laundromat is our studio sponsor. They keep us clean because ag is dirty, and you want to make sure to get all that stuff taken care of. They've got heavy-duty 80-pound washer and dryers to take care of those things that you didn't really want to run through your machines at home. You can drop it off and pick it up later if you'd like. Well, for phone calls today, whether you'd like to talk about the weather, send me some road reports or information about where you are today, you can do that on the JLA Insurance phone line. Our number here is 701-293-9000. And there are some very big crop insurance changes coming for the 2026 year. You're going to want to talk to Nate over at the JLA Insurance Company. And Nate would be happy to answer those questions for you. He's a farmer too and can help out. So again, you can reach me today, 701-293-9000. If you want to send an email, I will keep an eye on that email inbox, and you can send those emails to me, ag@flagfamily.com. And my inbox is powered by Superior Grain Equipment. You can protect your farm's future with Superior Grain Storage, Drying, and Handling Solutions. Find them, superiorbins.com. And lastly, if you want to watch, just like it's a TV show, hopefully with less drama, you can find us on Acres TV, which is a production of Ag PhD Media, and then Facebook and YouTube live streams. And thank you to Lighthouse Commodities. They make sure that you can see us and all of our guests, our graphics, and whatever we might be doing for the day here on this show. Well, I was so excited about the fact that we are having a Christmas tree farmer as our guest today. I thought, what goes along with Christmas trees? Well, how about reindeers? Reindeers seem like a great idea. Well, I have some fun things to know about reindeer. First of all, it's a little hard to find the exact count of reindeer in the U.S., but there are several reindeer farms across the country. Now, the states that might stand out where you'd typically think of finding reindeer, Alaska, Colorado, even Michigan. But reindeer farms can be found in Missouri, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky. A few of them have a very long history. The largest herd in the United States is believed to belong to the Reindeer Farm in Palmer, Alaska, owned and run by the family of Tom and Jean Williams since the 1950s. Now, these guys have been dreaming of owning reindeer since they were boys on the family dairy farm. So, in 1987, he traveled to northern Canada to bring the farm's first herd of 20 reindeer. Now, the farm has been in existence since the 1950s, The reindeer came just a little while later. They now have over 300 reindeer, and the oldest daughter, she carries on the tradition and has expanded the farm as well. DMDK Reindeer Farm is in Lake Crystal, Minnesota, formerly known as the Crystal Collection Reindeer Farm. It's family owned and operated. They also sell reindeer and are members of the Reindeer Owners and Breeders Association. I bet we didn't even know one of those existed. And they have had their reindeer on the Discovery Channel, the Mall of America, even right here in town at the Fargo Dome. The Leavenworth Reindeer Farm, I wonder if they have tiny little prison cells that they get to stay in. That is situated in the foothills of the Cascade Mountains in Leavenworth, Washington, not Leavenworth, Kansas, where the prison is. And guests get to hand feed and interact with all of those reindeer. And the winter and Christmas season, of course, is the most popular time. The farm has an interesting addition for next year, the 2026, the West Coast's largest geodesic projection dome, which will feature Northern Lights shows. So for those of you heading to the west, might want to put the Leavenworth Reindeer Farm on your list. And lastly, the Rooftop Landing Reindeer Farm. This is in Michigan, and it's dubbed Michigan's own North Pole. It's in Clare, Michigan. They open May to September for summer hours, then for Halloween, and again for Christmas. They have 18 reindeer, 3 new ones just this season. And of course, you can feed the reindeer, photos with Santa, and so much more. But also, they have a farm shop dedicated strictly to making candy canes, and they produce hundreds of candy canes each holiday season. So if you weren't sure where to spend those chilly winter days, maybe you wanted to be on the road when the road conditions are good, you, in fact, could be checking out the reindeer in a number of states and areas. So I think that makes great sense. Our guest today is going to be a gentleman calling us from Duluth, Minnesota. That would be Doug Hoffbauer, and he's going to be joining us to talk about Christmas trees. I'm always excited to talk to our guests, but it's not so easy as we planted a couple of trees and then we started selling them. I think there can be a lot more to it. We're going to find out from Doug what some of those things might be. Now, additional headlines that are happening. You know, we talked a little bit last week in regards to the new farm aid that's coming out from the Trump administration, and we mentioned the deadlines. Again, this Friday, December 19th, deadline for producers to make sure their 2025 acreage reporting is indeed accurate. By end of the month, USDA expects to release commodity-specific pay rates, and then by February 28th, USDA says FB eligible payments should be released. So plan for that. What are the crops that are going to be covered in this new program? Barley, corn, oats, sorghum, soybeans, peanuts, yes, but not really here, wheat, and then also a number of our pulse crops such as canola, flax, mustard, safflower, and sunflower are among some of those. Question has been asked, is $12 billion enough? The administration had been expected to roll out as much as $15 billion in aid back in October, but the 43-day federal government shutdown really pushed back that timeline. Interesting to note that during the first administration, Trump directed about $23 billion in aid to farmers. Overall, the trade package is welcomed, but U.S. farmers definitely say the damage from the trade war, China's boycott of U.S. soybeans throughout harvest, has taken its toll. The effects of loss in ag right now are somewhere in the neighborhood of $45 billion. So this is an amount to try to take off the edge, you might say. And for some, that's relief is going to come a little bit too late. Here in North Dakota, the Industrial Commission has announced 2 relief programs to keep in mind. The Farm Financial Stability Loan Program, which is intended to replenish working capital, term out operating carryover, and restructure existing term debts for producers with an operating shortfall for 24 or 25. Producers have to provide evidence of operating shortfall in those 2 years, or the borrower must have an existing 2024 ag disaster relief loan. And the borrower must demonstrate the ability to repay and have an operating line approved for the year 2026. Loans will be at a fixed rate of 3.75% for 5 years, and that is for the Bank of North Dakota's share. Local lenders' share of the loan may not exceed the Bank of North Dakota's base plus rate of 1%. There was $300 million set aside for this program by the Industrial Commission, and through Bank of North Dakota. The Grain Inventory Loan Program is a secondary program approved by the Industrial Commission here in the state. The Grain Inventory Loan Program is intended to provide short-term financing of remaining grain inventory. You, as the borrower, must have grain inventory that has not been sold with a need for working capital. Feed inventories are not eligible. The borrower must demonstrate the ability to repay and have an operating line approved for 2026. The loan amount cannot exceed 75% of the FSA's 2026 forecasted prices or 90% of contracted prices. Bank of North Dakota will provide funds with a variable interest rate at 0.75% below its base rate, which is determined at the time of funding. Local lenders' share of the loan may not exceed Bank of North Dakota's base rate plus 1%. And there was $100 million set aside for that program. If you have questions about the details in regards to these two ag relief loan programs within the state of North Dakota, you are encouraged to contact your local lender. You may call directly to the Bank of North Dakota as well. Again, these funds were approved by the North Dakota Industrial Commission here in the state to keep things moving along. Well, again, remember to reach out to me today. You can reach the phone line of 701-293-9000. That's the JLA Insurance phone line. I'll be watching for emails if you want to send those as well. ag@flagfamily.com. And that is brought to us by Superior Grain Bins. And we will return with our guest today. That is Doug Hoffbauer of Duluth. He's a Christmas tree farmer, and we'll learn more when we return. It's a new year, which means new assistant ag directors will be joining us. If you have someone in mind that you would like to have be part of the program, high school sophomores to college sophomores, they can be on air with us for a day here at the studio. They get a chance to interview guests, ask questions, and just be part of all of the behind the scenes things that do indeed happen. That program is brought to us by Cass County Farm Bureau. Thank you so much for helping bring students the joy of communications, learning a new skill, and above all, getting them interested in something like radio and farm broadcasting. Our guest today that is joining us is Doug Hoffbauer. He is a Christmas tree farmer in Duluth. Doug, how are you?
Good. We finally warmed up. We had a cold weekend.
Yes. So does that impact how many people come out and cut fresh trees, or are you kind of over the hump on that?
Well, we hope for a better weekend. We have two operations. We have a cut your own that my wife and I are running at our home farm, and then we have a second farm that about 2 miles away that my son now, we've given it to him, and he sells at a retail site downtown at Farmers Market in Duluth, and it's indoors and a barrel stove. We're still partners on that, and he had a good weekend because it was indoors and a barrel stove. With the wind and the cold, the cut your own was dismal. It was not it was 10% of what we had expected. But anyways, it's good to be done because we're done with the cut your own now as of last night. So we're just kind of wrapping things up, moving everything into our retail site to finish it off there.
Okay, so first of all, I would say it was not fit for man nor beast because it was brisk out there. But let's go way back to how the farm starts. Did you buy property that had trees that seemed like a U-cut situation was a great idea? Or did you have to start planting trees in advance and preparation for opening such an operation?
The later. I got the bug in college, U of M forestry degree back in 1976. And we had a couple of guest speakers that came on. We toured a Christmas tree farm. It always sat in the back of my mind. And so we bought our home place in 76 and then bought the second tree farm in 87. And we started planting trees immediately there. There were a few wild ones we could cut as we cleared land, but not enough to build a business. So first couple of years wasn't much, but by the mid 90s, we were going pretty full bore.
Now,
in fact, in those days, my son sold trees out in Grand Forks by Simonson's gas station and Charlie Brown's bar. He had to stand up there for 3-4 years in the late 90s selling trees out in your neck of the woods. So
I know right where Charlie Brown's bar is and that Simonson's. Well, okay, when it came to planting those trees, I'm sure you did them all by hand at that time. You know, if this was the late 70s, early 80s, right?
Well, we had a pull-type transplanter. I mean, it's not much better than by hand because you have to have somebody riding back there and then spacing out so you get the distances right. But I mean, it was doable. But then as we've gone on, we've interplanted. So we're planting by hand from now with an auger. My son does that. He's young and strong. But we put in about 4,000 to 5,000 seedlings a year between the two farms. So it's quite an operation. We're out of land. So we kind of got to just maximize where we're at.
Do you ever look at some trees, maybe you planted some varieties and said, that didn't turn out the way I wanted, and then just rip them out and restart?
Well, nature kind of takes its course on that. Back about 2000, 2001, we were part of a test plots with the University of Minnesota. We did 28 firs from around the world and to see which ones might be adapted to our climate. And we had 4 sites in Minnesota. Mine was probably the most, well, Grand Rapids had one too. And so coming out of that, we kept 2 varieties that we've liked. Like I say, we had an open winter 3 or 4 years into that trial, and it wiped out over half of them.
Wow.
And there's some that are still out there struggling to make it to 8 feet high. So, not very, we've gotten rid of most of them, but there's still a few of them that we just kind of curiosity. That was a concolor spur. They grow great in zones 5 and 6, but not so good up here in 3.
Yeah, those were the ones that they just weren't going to make it the way one wanted. Okay.
No, but the 2 were a pleasant surprise, and that was a Siberian fir.
Okay.
And a Korean fir. And the Siberian is very soft and has a tangerine or a citrus fragrance.
Oh.
And the Korean fir When it was a straight run, then they weren't very good, but they have a silver underedge of the needles and very dark green on the top, and so
Mm-hmm.
they really has a good color contrast, and they're a lot like a Fraser in that sense. In fact, but with better needle retention even.
So
The
that sort of helps me ask the question of, what are the trees that you're mostly planting and selling? So you still have the Siberian and the Korean, but others as
we
well?
we sell a couple hundred of them, but probably our biggest, our cut your own is straight balsam, and
Oh.
at our retail site we're about 75% balsam. That's kind of the wild tree up here. It smells like the cabin. It smells like going camping, kind of a thing. And so
Hmm.
people, the fragrance sells the balsam.
Do you ship those trees as well? I mean, I know you have the U cut and then your son has a retail lot, but have you ever experienced the shipping, netting them, sending them other places in the US?
Well, we do that, but on smaller scale. We've furnished some of the smaller sites that sell them up the shore, all the way
Mm-hmm.
up to Grand Marais,
Mm-hmm.
and but those have been like pickup loads. We haven't gone anything bigger than that, and we're pretty much a hand to mouth as far as like we grow our own trees, we cut them, and the part I think you're alluding to is that 10-year rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Is how do you predict what consumers will want 20 or 10 years from now?
Absolutely.
And that's been, we started planting in the 80s. Scotch pine was a big thing, and those are terribly ugly no matter how you work with them. and they're hard to grow. You spend half your summer on a sprayer with those things because every bug and disease wants to get at them. So anyways, it's been good as we moved into the firs, and so the balsam has still remained the big one here, but down in the cities it's all Fraser.
Wow. And like you said, really trending depending on where you are,
Yeah.
because you see what your neighbor has and you think, oh, I should have one of those, and that's probably how the word spreads, most likely.
Well, our retail site's pretty big, and
Hmm.
it's definitely the biggest in Duluth, and so we have a lot of people coming in there and smelling the different trees, and
Oh,
as we go and give our little spiel about the Koreans and the Siberians and the Frasers and the balsam, that people can kind of look and smell and learn, from that. So we're glad to do it. It's fun to teach people a little bit that they're totally unaware of.
well, and let's face it, I didn't even think I should be giving my Christmas tree the sniff test, but now I can. All right. Doug, please stay with us. We're going to listen to the news here at the bottom of the hour. And when we return, I've got questions for you. You mentioned a sprayer, bugs, pests, disease, etc. Let's talk about some of that when
Yeah.
we come back and kind of the hard work behind getting those Christmas trees ready to roll for your living room. We'll be back. TechSupportFarm.com. They now are going to have a webinar online here in January. It will be on the 6th. It is one that you can attend as a webinar. And by attending that webinar, you get a feel for what's going on out there that you should be wary of when it comes to your farm and agribusiness. You can sign up, take in that webinar. Again, that'll be on January the 6th. Give that a look. You can find it on their website, techsupport.farm. Now, we are visiting with our guest today, Christmas tree farmer Doug Hoffbauer from Duluth. Okay, Doug, I've had some questions sent to me.
Sure.
One of them was, what's the age of the trees when you harvest them? Or does that vary by species, variety, etc.?
Yes, it does. We're on our cut your own, we're on 8th summer of what our main field. We probably harvested half of them this year out of that field. We have another batch coming a couple years later, but so I would say that 7 to 8 to 9 years for balsam. Fraser and the Korean and Siberian, they're slower growing. They're going to be up in that 10, 11, 12 range. So that's part of why they cost more, is it's the time value of money. It takes those trees 2 or 3 years longer to grow.
Okay, that makes great sense. You've got to plan ahead, not just for what trees you're going to be harvesting, but you kind of have to think about it economically too, right? Which ones are going to cost you more to raise?
Yeah. Well, I can, what it takes for some of these Siberian to grow, I can get 2 rotations of balsam in there.
Oh, boy.
So you have to think, you really have to get some money out of that Siberian, but that's part of the business.
Labor intensive. You have to shape these trees throughout their growing cycle, correct?
Yes, we start. Well, I walk every row each year, but I don't really take the leader down until it's about 4 feet high, chest high.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, just make sure there's no doubles. That
Okay.
it's growing straight and with a single leader. And then we kind of limit it to a foot a year from there. So usually the 3rd summer, it'll get to that chest high part. And then 2 to 3 more years from there. And it'll be up in that 7 to 8 foot range, because we'll get from 4 foot, a foot a year.
Well,
is our goal.
You made a reference to diseases, pests, etc., because I'm going to bet those trees are tasty. What kind of bugs come after them? And do birds bother them, like woodpeckers?
No. Actually, deer rub and deer browsing is a big problem. In fact, we have fenced in 8 acres on the tree farm where we grow Frasers and some of the other ones that are prone to be browsed. And then they rub their horns on them too and bang them up. So that doesn't help them any. But the problems that we have spruce budworm here. That's been a problem that comes out of the woods, and it's a natural prey of balsam. And about every 5 or 6 years it gets here. And then we have aphids about 3 years out of 4.
Oh.
And for those, we have a big mist blower that we run on a bigger tractor down the driveways. Our field is kind of set out in about 12 rows in a block in a driveway if we skip a row. And then we can use that for harvesting, and we can run the mist blower down there when we need to.
So as someone who's got a background in agronomy, in my mind, I would think, okay, if timing is right, I would mix that insecticide probably with a fungicide to avoid needle cast or anything like that. Is that a common practice for you, or do you not worry about the diseases often?
No, we don't. We have phytophthora problems in heavier soils with Fraser.
Okay.
And there's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing economically possible for a 12-year rotation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so we just have to pick higher, drier ground. And secondly, with the balsam, we don't have many problems other than those occasional, if the weather's right, here they come. But we're set for it. We can get it done in a half a day, so it's not the end of the world, and it's not that expensive of a product. So do it when you need to.
Well, and that's the best thing don't overdo something. You look for the signs of what needs to be taken care of and be timely in your applications.
Yeah, we've got a degree day model that we follow, and you shake the branches and you see what falls out, and you count, and that kind of just like any other crop, I'm sure. But it's we've been lucky. We've only had to spray for aphids 3 or 4 times in the last 20 years, and spruce budworm once. So we've been able to dodge it. It hasn't hit to a point where it's been economically feasible. We have a little bit of aphid damage every year, but
sure,
you get a little bit droopy branches. But is it worth going out there to spray?
I'll be honest with you. When you said you have to shake the tree to see what falls out, all I could envision was my favorite holiday movie, Christmas Vacation. and somebody yelling squirrel. So hopefully that doesn't happen a lot. But have you had to relocate some wildlife from time to time?
Well, actually, we had a blessing this year. Some wild turkeys came in. We have a problem with ants. We have ants that they colonize an old stump.
Okay.
And then when the stump is gone, then they move out and they'll girdle and kill little seedlings that are growing alongside it. But now this year, our turkeys started tearing up anthills to eat larvae. Now you'd think it'd take an awful lot of ants to fill a turkey, but they were at it pretty steady.
It's like a continuous feed situation, right? Like an automatic feeder. They just kept going after them.
Yeah.
Someone somewhere is disgusted by the fact that their turkey might taste like an ant next year, but anything's possible.
Well, anyways, but no, we manage them like any other crop. We have spacing. We do the soil. There's varieties and seed sources of trees that people should consider if they're thinking doing it. But the first thing is the pH has got to be down there for the furs, and the 5.3 to 5.7 with 5.5 being preferred.
Mm-hmm.
You get above 6, you get some chlorosis, and so you kind of have to keep that in line. You don't want to get, in our case, it can often get below that, so we have to apply pelleted lime occasionally in our fertilizer blend.
So you're literally doing a soil test, right? So that you know those pHs.
We soil test every couple of years, try to catch different varieties, and we send them in. There's a place that's kind of recommended in it. I'm trying to think of it. Spectrum Analytics in Ohio does Christmas trees, and they first 0 to 3 years, 3 to 6 years maturity. So they have different categories. We're not that sophisticated. We kind of round them all up together and one size fits all and spread it, and it seems to work okay for us. We run about 50 pounds of N an acre, and the other two are, the P and the K are for the whatever the soil test reads.
Sure. And really, so what you're saying, those trees are more of a nitrogen user.
Yeah, phosphorus impacts bud count, which contributes to plant density. So you have to keep an eye on that one too. But N's probably the most visible, responsive one.
Now, as a listener question that I've gotten, do you sell seedlings? Because you had mentioned to me on the phone, Doug, that you've done this for a lot of years, and there may be a change in your operation. Would you sell seedlings out of it?
No, we buy ours in, and we use as a gentleman in Floodwood, Minnesota, by Grand Rapids there, Northern Minnesota Nursery. Mike Lane is his name, but he goes Business of Northern Minnesota Nursery.
Okay.
And he's got different seed, like for instance, in our balsam, we have some from Vermont, some from Nova Scotia, some from Quebec, and some from Minnesota.
Okay.
And so there are different traits to each one of them that you'd like to say, well, there's going to be some people that'll like this look and some people will like that look. And so we buy from each. I mean, he grows them for us. And so they're probably $1.50 a piece for a knee-high seedling, or it's actually a transplant at that stage. But it's worth it to get it in the ground at that size, so it gets going right away.
Doug, you're knocking it out of the park. The questions I'm getting from followers on Facebook and YouTube, which is brought to us by Lighthouse Commodities, you're answering those things for us, because one of them was size of trees. You just talked about knee-high. And then fertility program. So, man, I don't even have to prompt you. You're reading everybody's mind out there. This is excellent.
Okay, here's the weed control portion.
Yes.
I'm assuming
that's my next
can
one.
Be mentioned.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay, I don't know. Sometimes you got to tiptoe around this one, but we use Roundup, a non-surfactant like with Mad Dog Original.
Yes.
And we use that spring before bud break. And bud break around here is usually about the 20th of May. So we got to get that done. In order, we fertilize, plant, spray. But we use use the Roundup, and we mix it with Princep or Simazine.
Yep. And
some SureGuard. And I'm sure you guys have probably heard of most of those.
Well, yeah. And I do want to clarify, you're not spraying the tree itself, because glyphosate, the active ingredient. Yeah, the glyphosate is a contact herbicide, and that would kill off part of the tree. So you're spraying what's around it, and like Princep, especially for grass.
Well, no, let me reiterate that.
Okay.
When the tree is dormant, you can use the Roundup Original on the tree with minimal damage. You'll get, we have directed spray. We try to get under the tree, and we end up with the trees will sometimes get a little pear-shaped. In other words, a rounded bottom.
Believe me, I know that shape myself.
No, I'm not trying to go there. But
Sorry, Doug.
the Roundup has that impact on it if you get too high of a,
Mm-hmm.
you get it up to, But we tank mix the three,
Okay.
and then band spray it underneath the trees. We're having some problem with erosion because the industry standard is basically a bare field,
Sure.
scorched earth. So we're starting to see some wash out. So we're trying to get a grant from Minnesota this year to interseed or cover crop with birchwood trefoil in between. And we're
Mm-hmm.
thinking I've been working with our extension agent, and we've been scratching our heads for a couple of years, and hopefully this will be the push to get it done. But we're trying to do that, to give the equipment and the trees something to ride on. We've had some wet falls when it gets kind of muddy, and then people are dragging the trees out of the woods, or whether it's for the wholesale accounts or whether it's for the cut your own. Having a grass or a sod strip between the trees
Yeah.
makes that part of it.
Really
I
nice.
think that there'll be some nitrogen fixing potential
Mm-hmm.
from that, and so we're looking at all of that, and hopefully that will get answered.
Yeah, you mentioned bird's foot trefoil, and that is actually a great like a cover crop. It's not
Yeah.
in cover crop mixes, but it would work in the instance that you're looking for ground cover, is what I should call it. Not cover crop, but ground cover.
Yeah, and it'll tolerate the lower pHs of the different
Yes.
legumes, and
Yeah.
then it also doesn't have the deer attraction. The clovers just bring them in, and I got enough of them already. You don't need to give them dessert.
I'm with you. They think there's a buffet line that's open, and it's not at it should not be at your place. I get that.
No, I can only eat so much venison.
You and me both. But I like mine fried in butter. Doug, thank you so much. You have been a wealth of knowledge and great fun to visit with. Just want to say
Well,
thanks.
I had to close that if somebody is interested in this,
Mm-hmm.
attend your state meetings. I don't know what North Dakota has, but Minnesota has a meeting. It's usually the end of February, 1st of March down
Okay.
in the cities. But go to the annual meeting, attend some of the speakers, ask questions.
Yeah.
And find out because there's a good trade show there where the seedling vendor I mentioned and a couple others will be there, and equipment and stuff. So you can kind of get an idea what you're getting into before you jump in. So, I think that it would be time and money well spent to take a weekend and the cities and do that. I'm assuming it's in the cities.
Yeah.
I was on the board, but I am trying to retire.
Well, before you do, where can folks find information about the retail operation, the U-Cut, et cetera, the name of your business?
Well, it goes under Farmer Doug in Duluth.
Okay.
And my son is running Hoffbauer Tree Farm. And so those would be the two sites to go with. Like I say, it's a very willing and agreed on transition. So I'm happy and want to make sure he gets all the blue sky that comes with it. And that's the part of it, So any support, he's very knowledgeable. He's willing to help as well. So either one of us, send us a personal message, and I'll do my best to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Doug. I hope you have a fantastic rest of a mostly warm afternoon.
Yep, you bet. Thank you.
All right, folks, stay tuned. I'm going to want to recap the weather and handle a couple of headlines as well before the top of the hour. So we'll be back. All right, weather kids out there, there's a little bit of it heading our way. So today, beautiful day out there. Looking for those highs close to 30 degrees. Tomorrow, maybe pushing 40, 38 for sure, but windy. So be prepared for that. As I said, I hope it's a wind out of the north that blows me south for great gas mileage. That's my hope anyway. But pay attention to late Wednesday as we see this develop and into Thursday. We have an opportunity there for another wintry blast. Potentially could see some freezing rain turning into snow. Don't know exactly what that looks like. And then there will be another brief burst of Arctic air to spill back in. So do not panic. It is winter. Keep that snow shovel handy. In fact, with it's this warm out there, go scrape off that driveway and make it better. You'll be happy that you did. All right. What are things happening in the headlines in ag these days? Well, there's a few things as usual. Number one, let's talk about potatoes. In a press release that recently came out from longtime potato industry champion Senator Susan Collins of Maine, there has been some benefits specifically securing vital federal funding and program provisions for the humble potato. This is going to bring forward some potato research funding. This bill maintains a full funding for the National Institute of Food and Agriculture's Potato Research Program. The sustained investment really is critical for competitive, merit-based potato breeding projects across the country, and that addresses challenges that are impacting production. And also, there will be promotion of potatoes in school breakfast. The measure maintains the provision that allows school authorities to provide potatoes through the school breakfast program. This is a win for promoting the consumption of nutrient-rich potatoes in federal nutrition programs. Potatoes need a little love. Sometimes they're overlooked. And that humble potato, which graces so many of our holiday tables throughout this season, is one that can be doing more in our schools and other areas. Additionally, if you're thinking about potatoes, what goes best with potatoes? Butter. Butter has had a bad reputation for a long time. And I want to say thank you to Kevin, our listener, who already sent me a picture of the cookies that they are baking today because he wanted to point out they are using butter, no margarine or Crisco or lard. I would be okay with lard. I remember Grandma's pie crust. That did require some John Morrell lard from the grocery store. Not a bad choice. But when it comes to butter, it is back. There was a 2014 study that was published in the Annals of Internal Medicine suggesting that saturated fat, and by extension butter itself, did not increase heart disease risks. So the following year, McDonald's even dropped margarine and replaced it with butter on breakfast sandwiches, and the butter revolution has begun. Butter demand has exploded. We saw prices over $3 a pound for the first time ever in 2014, and we have again seen it surpass that $3 threshold with a peak at $3.50 back in October of 2023. The dairy industry has welcomed the growing demand with very open arms. More saturated fats are incorporated into dairy cattle rations to promote greater fat expression in milk. Breeding selections have been made to do the same and has shown phenomenal results. From 2010 to 2015, average U.S. butterfat test ranged from, let's say, 3.6 to 3.7, but it grew to 4.25 in 2024 and is expected to go up again for as we enter into 2026. 16% growth in the last decade. Breeding programs are producing heifers with the ability to make more fat in their milk, creating a future stream of high potential genetic animals. Unborn calves carrying these genetics may not enter the milking herd until 2028, meaning we are poised to continue this ramp up of fat production for several years. Many who are using the carnivore diet are also seeing a resurgence in their butter consumption. Americans are growing their demand at about 6% annually, Europeans not far behind. And as we watch the Asian customers, they are seeking a more Western diet, which brings us more opportunities as well. Now, I often get the question, let's talk about beef and beef prices, and why are they so high? Well, factually speaking, it's not like it's cheap and easy to raise cattle. So you have to think about the costs behind it. When you are looking at replacement costs, let's say you remove an animal from your herd. That could happen because maybe they're lame. Maybe you had a cow who did not get pregnant, and you don't want to feed an animal who's not going to produce a calf. So that cow replacement cost currently $480 to $560 per animal. then multiply the percentage of females you usually take out of your herd, which is about 15% on average, and you will have to pay for replacements or the cost of developing your own heifers. Now, those who raise their own replacements, you can develop your own heifers for less than a purchase price, and that's great, but you have to account for the true value for which you would have sold that 500-pound heifer calf at weaning. So when you add the opportunity cost plus all the development expenses, how much do you really have invested? Quite a bit. And one of those silent budget killers that's creeping up, interest. Higher interest rates, rising cattle prices, and interest expense are dominating budgets. When you need to borrow money to buy cattle and those higher interest rates have to be accounted for, and not everybody has been, it will take its toll. Just a few of the headlines and facts that are going on. Looking forward to talking with you again tomorrow. Guests are lined up, ready to go. Oh, and the Jay Thomas Show is next with guest hosts. See you later.